Today I'm gonna tell all of you how I learned Korean. So I've been learning Korean for the past 4 years now, and I would say that my life has changed a lot because I learned Korean. I was able to meet a lot of wonderful people. I was able to talk to people that I otherwise wouldn't be able to talk to if I didn't speak Korean. And also, since I live in Korea, speaking Korean is definitely a good thing to be able to do, just because when you meet people that don't speak English, it makes getting close with them a lot easier than otherwise. And so today I want to tell all of you who maybe want to learn Korean because of maybe K-pop or dramas that you can definitely learn Korean as long as you know the proper steps. If you want proof that I can actually speak Korean, you can check out this video I'm gonna post on the top here that shows me speaking Korean for several minutes. I have many other videos on other channels of me speaking Korean, but I'm not here to talk about me today. I'm just here to tell all of you how you're gonna be able to speak Korean within the nick of time. So the first thing I think that everyone should be doing, I feel like this goes without saying, but I'm just gonna say it anyways, you must learn how to read Hangul. So I don't understand why people would try to learn Korean without reading Hangul, but I'm not gonna spend much time on this point. Learn Hangul, okay? If you can't read Korean, you can't speak Korean, period. Obviously, a lot of people have their own methods of language learning, and I'm just here stating my own opinions here. So please keep that in mind as I'm gonna go on to the next few steps. Step 2, I recommend using Talk to Me in Korean. So when I first started learning Korean, I made it a point to figure out how to say the things that I commonly say in English in Korean. And so, for example, I would try to figure out how to say good night or how are you, I'm hungry, things of this nature. Very basic stuff. There's no need to memorize, learn the grammar points that are within these phrases or these set phrases that you decide to memorize. It's just so that you can kind of hit the ground running and learn phrases that you will have many opportunities to use. Just because if you learn phrases that you use every day, then obviously you'll have more opportunities to use these phrases, and you'll just be more and more likely to sound like a native speaker when you use these phrases over time. So while you're learning these phrases, I also recommend using Talk to Me in Korean on the side to learn grammar. And so this is exactly what I did. I used Talk to Me in Korean within maybe 2 months of starting my Korean studies. As I mentioned before, I initially just focused on learning phrases that I knew were relevant to me. Had I known about Talk to Me in Korean sooner, I might have just started using them from the very beginning. I got up to level 7 in Talk to Me in Korean's grammar. So I'm gonna try to show you proof of my Korean studies. I'm still using the old app. I didn't update it just because it has this kind of feeling of legacy member status. I'm sure they would have updated it by now like they did their website. If you look at the picture that I'm probably gonna put in this video, you'll see that there's some little dots near the recordings that I didn't listen to. You can see that there's no dot next to the episodes that I had already listened to. So you can see that I went to about Talk to Me in Korean level 21. To be honest, I felt like the grammar up till that point was the most relevant. Obviously, they ordered it to be that way. I was already able to speak, make full sentences and converse with people within maybe a year of speaking or studying Korean, just because, like I said, I learned sentences and phrases that are relevant to me that I could use every single day. And also I learned a lot of Talk to Me in Korean grammar up until about level 7. So if you want to go beyond that, I'm sure it's going to be worth your while. However, for me, I felt like going up until level 7 was definitely just the right amount for me. It helps you learn a lot of the grammar in a more structured fashion rather than just using a bunch of textbooks and wasting your money. So yeah, definitely recommend Talk to Me in Korean. Now that you've kind of gotten a base in terms of grammar with Talk to Me in Korean, and you've also learned a lot of phrases that are relevant to you, the next step that I would recommend for anyone who wants to learn Korean or any language is focus on input. I cannot emphasize this enough. If your input is a lot, then you will be more likely to sound like a native. Now, I recommend, just doing what you probably would have already been doing, which is watching Korean dramas, watching variety shows on YouTube. If you live in America, I know that a lot of the variety shows on American YouTube are just free. All these other YouTube channels, they have free online web dramas, they have online variety shows that typically normal Korean people would have to pay to have access to. We have access to that just because we're not in Korea, and they make that available to foreign watchers. And so I highly recommend just watching a lot of these variety shows. Some variety shows that I would recommend that are pretty old, but I definitely watched them when I was studying Korean, was Hello Counselor. I really loved Hello Counselor, and I also liked Happy Together. You can also learn from a lot of the subtitles that often come out on the screen. That's what I would usually use in terms of building my vocabulary. I would just, pause, and then I'm like, oh, that looks useful. I would translate and see what it means, and then like kind of memorize it, or if you want, write it down. And so yes, in this way I recommend just inputting as much as you can, and inputting never stops. For those of you that want to watch Korean shows without subtitles, I can tell you that in terms of this, it's definitely possible to do this. I would say, obviously it depends on the person, and so I'm just talking about my experience here. I was able to watch Korean shows just genuinely with a 80% comprehension rate within maybe 2 years, and I know this number varies. For me, I was an on and off drama viewer, and so for those of you who maybe watch dramas like every single day for hours and hours on end, you'll definitely probably achieve your goal much faster than I did. And it also depends on the genre you're watching. If you're watching like a historical drama or maybe a science related drama, you're probably not gonna understand it, and they will definitely use words that are even difficult for regular Korean people to understand. Don't feel bad if you don't understand. I recommend sticking with web dramas. Those are the most easy to understand, easy to comprehend, and they have the more relevant situations that you'll most likely run into in your day-to-day lives. Another type of input I would recommend is reading. So for those of you who have already started studying Korean and maybe you're stuck at the intermediate level, maybe you want to get to the advanced level, I would recommend reading in terms of another way for you to boost your Korean level. A lot of words that come out in books don't come out in natural conversation, but I wouldn't say that these words are useless. For me, at least, I feel like if Koreans know it, I want to know it, and you don't have to be like that. However, if you're saying that you kind of want to get to that level where although you can never become a native speaker, you want to be somewhat on par with a native speaker in terms of what they understand and what they can comprehend, I definitely recommend reading. They would have read a lot of books in their childhood in Korean. That's why they're so good at Korean, right? And so you definitely have to do the same. You probably would have done it in English or whatever native language that you speak. So I definitely recommend doing a fair amount of reading just so that you can get a better understanding of how Koreans express certain ideas, and you can learn more advanced vocabulary that you most likely will not run into whenever you're having normal day-to-day conversations with Korean people or when you're watching Korean dramas and variety shows. I feel like it'd kind of be weird if I went past this segment without making a book recommendation. Although this isn't really a book, but I still think it would help you. So when you're trying to learn how to read in Korean, reading newspapers is something you want to consider doing when you want to learn more advanced vocabulary. And for that reason, I'm recommending Talk to Me in Korean's News in Korean, or they say 뉴스로 한국어 공부하기. This book I would really recommend for those who want to be more familiar with the vocabulary that is used in newspaper medium. I definitely recommend this just because they break it down in a way that's much easier to comprehend. It's kind of organized like this, where they have like 50 news segments in this book, right? They break it down to you. And so this book is in English, and so I'm sorry for those that, don't really know English that well. But yeah, they break down each word one by one with the Korean translation, and then they also tell you the natural translation of that word, right? So then after that, they'll give you a quiz so that they can kind of test your comprehension of what's going on. And you can keep doing this, and it will really help you in terms of building your vocabulary and just being more familiar with news articles and how things are done in the news. You can start with this, and then you can go on to even more difficult news articles or news medium that you can also find for free on YouTube. This would be a definite good base that I would recommend for those who want to get to the advanced level of Korean. Sentence mine a lot of sentences that you think are relevant to you that may help you have more opportunities to speak in day-to-day life. just because, like I said, the things that are relevant to you are the things you want to focus on, and that's the one that you want to kind of fine tune so that they sound very natural. Okay, don't use translators to translate those phrases that you want to use for yourself. I would recommend Hello Talk or via maybe Hi Native. There are a lot of sites and pen pal sites online that you can visit that will give you access to Korean native speakers. However, I would recommend that you be careful, just because I heard there's a lot of creeps on there that may just want to date you just because you're a foreigner or whatever. And so yeah, be careful of that. But yeah, if you can find some good people, I recommend using those sites to find friends that can help you translate the things that you want to say in Korean for you, and then you can just practice using that with them. And then they can also ask you to translate things for them into English as well. Like I said, just avoid using Google Translate and Papago or Naver dictionary as much as you can for long sentences. I recommend using those for maybe shorter phrases or maybe single words. It's a lot more effective in those situations from my experience. I have had a situation where Papago translated something really weirdly to me, and I just knew right away, oh, this is wrong. I can't use this. I'm never using this for this type of stuff again. And so, yeah. Anyway, so I mainly discussed listening and reading today. I think that writing and speaking is something that I want to kind of go into more depth in a separate video. And so I might just do like a part 1, a part 2 of this. I really don't know if anyone's going to watch this. But yeah, I hope that to those that do watch this, that it does give you a bit of help in terms of your Korean journey. I want you to know that you can do it, and yeah, just believe in yourself. I think believing yourself is the biggest piece of advice that I can give you. Just believe that you can do it and that you'll eventually reach your goals. So yeah, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions for content you want to see in regards to life in Korea or studying Korean or Japanese, because I'm studying Japanese these days, please leave that down below. I'll be sure to consider it, and yeah, see you guys again in the future. Bye bye.